It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
I have to believe, especially my audience here, you folks, that we Americans, we patriots, are rational people. Reasonable people. The people who know good from evil, right from wrong. And we also know hustlers and grifters and Marxists and fascists and Islamists who endanger our country every damn day, who are destroying our culture and the civil society, who are breeding a youth that hates America and embraces the wrong things. We see this guy in New York, this Mamnani, or whatever the hell his name is, who is a vile Marxist Islamist. He is a liar about his background, about his race. We've seen his likes before. History's filled with monsters like this. And yet we have a growing, I fear, element that cloaks itself in what I call fake MAGA, or the Republican Party, or the conservative, or whatever they call themselves, populists, nationalists, have an affinity for the Third Reich, affinity for Hitler promoters, who, if not outright Jew haters, they like to walk the fine line. And you know I'm right. This guy Catarlson brings this guy Cooper on his program. This guy Cooper is a bum, in my humble opinion. A complete bum. How he twists and turns. Where Churchill's the bad guy. Hitler really was sending signals. He didn't want to continue with the war, you know, but it was Churchill. He was the problem. Just like those of us who condemn Iran, we're the problem. What kind of a-hole interviews the phony president of an Islamist regime that's slaughtering its own people because he wants to get some information from him? No, he doesn't. Charles C.W. Cook is a bright guy. Writes at National Review. Born in Britain. I don't always agree with him, but I agree with him enough. It takes on this guy Cooper and others who basically say, hey, look, Hitler was sending signals that to the British, to Churchill, but Churchill wouldn't accept them. Churchill wouldn't accept them. Talks about 1940, when he dropped leaflets, did Hitler, all over Britain, trying to appeal for reason. And Cook writes, where to start? The leaflet referred to here, A Last Appeal to Reason by Adolf Hitler, was dropped en masse on August 1, 1940. By that date, number one, Nazi Germany's attempt to destroy the Royal Air Force ahead of an invasion of Britain was already in its fourth week. 21 days at least before the leaflets, 120 Luftwaffe bombers hit British ships in the Channel. 70 Luftwaffe bombers struck dockyards in Wales. From that date on, raids were staged by the Luftwaffe every day and night. Number two, Hitler had already issued Directive Number 16 on July 16, formalizing plans for the imminent invasion of Britain, Operation Celion. Number three, Nazi Germany had already conquered France, Poland, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, and Netherlands, and Luxembourg, and had begun in July 1940 to make plans to invade the Soviet Union, with which it had signed a non-aggression pact and to murder tens of millions of its supposedly subhuman people. See Himmler's memo of May 25, 1940. Cooper's causation is false, too. 5 weeks after the leaflet was dropped, Nazi Germany started bombing London and other British cities in a campaign known as the Blitz. But this didn't happen because, to his great regret, Hitler's friendly little leaflet campaign had failed. It happened because, by that point, Hitler had realized that Nazi Germany was losing the Battle of Britain, that the air superiority he needed prior to an invasion was going to elude him, and that a new tactic was necessary. In a sense, the Blitz was an updated leaflet campaign. Their purpose was to turn the British against the war and leave Nazi Germany with a free hand to do more of what it had done since 1937. As for the idea that Churchill magically had all the leaflets collected, the Nazis dropped 5 million of them in literally every part of the country, so while efforts were indeed made in cities to clean up, and the British government indeed didn't like it, hiding them all wasn't remotely feasible, or even attempted in earnest. Even in the 1990s, when I was a kid, there were so many of them in circulation, you'd see them at garage sales and antique shops, and old people would get them from their attics to show them off. To cast Hitler as Cooper does here, and by extension Churchill, you have to ignore that when this leaflet was dropped, Nazi Germany had taken over pretty much all of Western Europe. It was in the process of attempting to destroy Britain's air defenses so that, in Hitler's own words of July 16, Germany could, quote, eliminate the English homeland as a base for the prosecution of the war. Why do I even have to read this crap? Why do I have to explain basic history about the good guys and the bad guys? Why are these insane, knucklehead know-nothings, these propagandists, these demagogues, given platforms? Why? Don't hand me we need to hear both sides. This isn't both sides. Propaganda's not both sides. Lies are not both sides. My God, we can't even get World War II right? Can't even get Nazi Germany right? And then these guys claim that they're MAGA. They're conservatives, right? And then they get their little headlines and they get the little hits. Well, by God, I'm going to take this crap on for as long as I live. Because it's destroying our youth. It's poisoning their minds. World War III is going to happen if we take out Iran's nuclear sites. Well, it didn't, and it was never going to happen. Neither were the Arab states going to all join in and defend Iran, which they hate. Don't you get tired of being lied to? Don't you get tired of these Svengalis? Whether on the radical Marxist left or the radical fascist right, doesn't it matter? It matters. We are constitutional conservatives. That's what we are. We don't need rebranding, and we don't need to hear both sides when one side is full of crap. Now, they're welcome to do it, but it has an impact. It has an impact. With the new media, any moron can podcast. And many of them do. And many of them do. There's a reason why. There's this coalition of these weirdos, these crackpots, these radical nut jobs. There's a coalition. This isn't them versus we, the establishment. You and I aren't the establishment. You and I are the Tea Party, the Reagan Revolution, the Trump Revolution. You and I are Convention of States. That's hardly establishment. They're not nationalists. They're boneheads. They don't even know what a nationalist is. So we're having to deal with the Marxists and the Islamists and these other fools. People literally have to take to the internet, or me on this radio show, and explain why Hitler was the bad guy and Churchill was the good guy. That the West is worth preserving. How wrong are these people? The Marxists and the Islamists. You're going to get free this, free... Nothing's free. Milton Friedman was right. No such thing as a free lunch. It costs you your property and your liberty and your lifestyle. Is that free? No. And these other morons who claim, We have a new ideology. Oh, we're new. No, you're not. You're the same sad sack thugs that are filled in our history books. In our history books. They were completely wrong when President Trump decided to support Israel in its dealings with Iran. They were completely wrong when we took out those nuclear sites. There wasn't even a nick on one of our planes. They didn't, not even a paint scratch. They were completely wrong. China did nothing. Russia did nothing. The Arab states are cheering behind the scenes. They went in on the Abraham Accords. They don't apologize. They keep doubling down. They said they're tired of forever wars. Well, one of them was just ended. Just ended. Our enemies are building up, building up, building up. And their answer is, ignore them. Or their answer is, look at a different enemy, not that enemy. And they talk, and they talk. They're very slick, and they're very stupid. Very predictable. And they sound like the Marxists and the Islamists, don't they? They all attack capitalism. Have you noticed that? They all attack American business. Have you noticed that? Oh, big this and big that. No, big government's the problem. That's the problem. Big government. None of them support Convention of States. They don't even talk about it. Why is that? You know why. They don't mind a big activist government. They just wanted to do what they wanted to do. We have our hands full, America. Patriotic Americans, constitutional conservatives, we have our hands full. But the truth is important. The truth is vital. And if we have to sit here and relitigate World War II, that Hitler was bad and Churchill was good, and nobody instigated Hitler. These guys read what Hitler wrote in the 1920s? I mean, what are they talking about? And then they pretend they support our military. We just don't want a forever war. We don't want our people involved in wars. Yes, you do. Because it's people like you that got our people involved in wars in the 1930s. You're the morons who did it. And then the Marxist Islamists taking over our culture. Taking over our culture. Tell me where they're not. Entertainment, academia, the media. Tell me where they're not. Even tonight, I was watching a report. It says, what will Trump do to pressure Netanyahu to get the hostages out from Gaza? Do you believe that, Mr. Producer? Like Netanyahu took hostages. You've got Qatar, which funded Hamas, which protected Hamas, is our mediator. Advising Hamas on what to do while claiming to be a mediator. All Hamas has to do is release the hostages. But they don't want to release the hostages because then they figure they're finished. And they're right. But it's Netanyahu, the pressure on Netanyahu. Just like they trash Churchill. They trash Netanyahu because he's the Churchill of our time. Got to trash these guys, you see. But they're principled. They're principled. They know what they have to do.
Mark Levin.
Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
You know, the stories you hear about this Texas flood, they're just heartbreaking. The 13 and 11-year-old sisters, did you hear, Mr. Producer? They found them holding hands. They were dead. They had drowned, but they were holding each other's hands. That's just, that's enough to make the toughest man cry, I think. Over 100 dead now. Some 40 or more missing. Still looking, actually more than that, 160 and some missing. All the politicians and the media, they have all the answers. What about sirens? What about this? What about that? I don't know. These natural disasters, it's hard to prepare for them. It's hard to know what to do, even in the best of circumstances and a sense of preparation. Maybe there are ways to ameliorate situations, but there's no way to end this. The earth is the earth, and the earth can be a very angry place. It absolutely can. All these little kids, and don't get me wrong, these adults too, and these counselors who are quite young. It's just so sad. So terrible. And all the people who are helping, all the great heroes down there, you've got people pouring out of communities throughout the state of Texas, throughout the country, heading down there, doing everything they can, what they feel they can do. And then you look again at the individuals in and around Washington, D.C., and I don't mean the citizenry, I mean the power. Those in power. Some of them are breaking their ass to get as many resources down there as they can. Others are just looking for opportunities to exploit. It always amazes me when the left, the media, when they talk about the failures of government, yet they want more and more of it. They talk about the failures of government, yet they want more and more of it. And when you had DOJ that showed all this bloat and all this waste and fraud, including in FEMA, they had no problem with it. None. As if making these agencies bigger will fix something. It won't. They start with the National Weather Service. I noticed today we're not talking about the National Weather Service, are we, Mr. Producer? Because people lied about it. They said it was understaffed, and it turned out, the head of the union and others pointed out that actually they were not understaffed, that they had more staff than usual. They were paying overtime for people to come in. And I'm watching these press conferences with these searchers who are... I want you to think about what they're facing. Not only are they facing danger, certainly were early on, but they are the ones who are finding these bodies. Imagine the impact, the psychological and emotional impact that has on a person. Especially if it's a little kid. Just imagine the impact. And finding a couple of camp kids together, lifeless. It's got to be unbelievable. It's got to be horrific. So I want to point that out. There's something we can do to help them in the aftermath. These families and these communities, there's nothing we can do to stop something that already occurred. Better minds than mine will figure out if there are ways to ameliorate situations like this, but there's certainly no way to stop them. It's unfortunate, but it's true. That's the nature of Mother Nature. I hate that phrase because it makes it sound like nature's so loving. We hear about polar bears and all the rest, but nature can be a real monster. A real monster. Looks like President Trump's had about enough of Vladimir Putin, who's slaughtering Ukrainian civilians left and right now. I don't understand, even if you disagree with our posture there, I don't understand that. But even if you do, I don't understand this visceral hate for Zelensky. I don't get it. He's fighting like hell for his country. He wants as much weaponry as he can possibly get, wherever he can get it, whether it's the United States or Europe or anybody else for that matter. Isn't that what he's supposed to do? Isn't that what we want our president to do? It's a very small country of 40-some million people, up against Russia, 160 million people, heavily outarmed, heavily outmanned, and they've put up a hell of a fight. We used to root for an underdog, particularly when the underdog was democratic as opposed to communist. But we have some individuals now in our country who root for the communists, in this case the old KGB, mass-murdering genocidal maniac, against Ukraine. And most of these same people root for Iran against Israel. Think about it. Think about how perverse this is. I support Israel and I support Ukraine. And I'll support Taiwan if Taiwan gets attacked. I think that's the position of red-blooded Americans, whatever we call ourselves otherwise. That's what we are, red-blooded Americans. And you watch as these fake MAGA types, more like maggot types, some of whom are America haters dressed up as America lovers, some of whom are Jew haters who give their platforms to anti-Semites, some of whom are much more sympathetic to the Third Reich and they trash Churchill. These are sick people. These are truly sick people. President Trump had a remarkable cabinet meeting today. I watched almost all of it, including talking about how he's redesigned some of the rooms, some of the portraits he's brought in, some of the antiquities and so forth. He loves this stuff because, look, he was a builder. When you look at Mar-a-Lago, that is a magnificent structure with magnificent interior and so forth. He's got great taste. Great taste. And with everything he's doing that too. It's incredible. He's an incredible person. He just is. Now, well, we're going to get to this in a minute, but there's a lot of hyper-reaction on the internet, of course. That's where most of the hyper-action goes on. Not on talk radio, not on TV, the internet. And people, many of whom you know, trashing the President of the United States over the issue of amnesty. Amnesty for farm workers. And both he and his Secretary of Agriculture said, we're not going to give amnesty to farm workers. You're going to hear that in a moment, too. So there's no amnesty for farm workers. I told you what I think about this Epstein thing yesterday. You've got people with platforms. They have to have hits. They have to have subscribers. They have to constantly be hyper emotional, and you see this as they try and draw attention to themselves. It's the same for some of the media that reports on what they say and do, like Mediaite or the Drudge Report or others. They've got to create an audience. They've got to create a viewership, if you will. And this is how they do it. They're all National Enquirer and worse. Worse. There's nothing intelligent that is ever said on the Drudge Report or Mediaite or places like that. Nothing. There's nothing intelligent said on some of these podcasts. Nothing. Zero. There's conspiracy theories, there's collusion arguments, there's this, that. And one of the morons today said in the Epstein matter, he believes that the U.S. intelligence and the Israeli intelligence have covered up the Epstein matter, Mr. Producer. Now, why would the U.S. intelligence and Israeli intelligence cover up the Epstein matter? Can you think of anything, Rich? I can't even. That's a conspiracy theory without a conspiracy. It's bizarre. So Radcliffe over at the CIA and the Mossad that's busy fighting a war, they're very worried about the Epstein matter blowing up, so they're covering it up. No, they're not. How stupid is that? But that's thrown out there to get eyes, to get ears. Doesn't even make any sense. Then I'm supposed to believe, as I said last night, that there's this huge conspiracy, including a conspiracy with many of our friends who we trusted before they went in the administration, but now we're not supposed to trust them. Kash Patel, who's a great patriot. Dan Bongino, a great patriot, a man who's put his life on the line as a cop in the Secret Service, who's been in this business right here. I love the guy. He's a dear friend. I haven't discussed Epstein with him. Why would I? We're supposed to believe he and Patel and Pam Bondi, who was one of the great litigators in 2020, trying to defend the president in the election, that all three of them and scores of others have thrown in to conspire to hide whatever it is that's in the Epstein material that's supposedly out there. You want to go there? Go there. Now, you know, when I go down my street here and talk to people, when I go to the diners that I like to go to, the supermarkets I like to go to, and people come up to me, if I bring up Epstein, 9 out of 10 won't even know what the hell I'm talking about, Rich. They just won't know. They want to know about war and peace. They want to know about prices. They want to know about the border and immigration. They want to know about real big stuff. Now, if there's some Epstein list of people who were molesting underage girls, why would they hide it? So we're to believe that the Biden administration hid it, and the Trump administration hid it. Now, why would the Biden administration hide it? Then you have these sleazeballs say, well, maybe Trump is on the list. Well, why wouldn't the Biden administration release that? Because he's not on any list. And so this is the world of the internet. This is the world of these buffoons who try and exploit you, who try to expose these things. Some of you, if you're disappointed, I'm sorry you're disappointed. I don't know what to do for you. I can sit here and rail on and on about it. I can go on and speculate. Maybe the Mossad was involved, and Ratcliffe and the CIA was involved, and Patel and Bongino and Bondi, they all got together to cover it up. Why? 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 Or maybe the guy killed himself. Isn't that possible? Now, in this little cabal, this is a big issue. This is the issue of the day. This is it, baby. But in the rest of the country, it's not. Now, we should have learned from this a week, 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, when many of the same Kabbalists, when the same hemorrhoidics, a.k.a. human hemorrhoids, when the same people were going on and on about how the American people and the supporters of Trump don't want Israel taking on the Iranian regime and certainly don't want the United States bombing those nuclear sites. But they were only off by 94% when 94% of Republican MAGA supported it. 90% at first, and then 94% after it was successful. So, I mean, this is the reality. This is the reality.
Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
Well, these lower federal courts act as if the Supreme Court never ruled. We have a judge in the L.A. area appointed by Biden, whose name I can't even pronounce, who's issuing an opinion tomorrow in full, today in part, essentially claiming that the ICE roundup of various illegal aliens is racist, among other things. And so we will wait to get more of that. We have a judge today who also ruled with a national injunction in support of birthright citizenship. So they're still on the move here. They're still doing what they've been doing in many regards, as if the U.S. Supreme Court hasn't ruled. So now we have these Biden-Obama judges who are literally defying not just the Constitution and federal law, not just separation of powers, the core of the Constitution, but are now defying a ruling by the United States Supreme Court. And it's funny, you're not hearing in the press, are you, about the attack on the Constitution, about judicial tyranny or dictatorships. You're not hearing about any of that. And yet that's exactly what's taking place in this country right now. And if the judge in L.A., should her ruling be upheld, which I doubt it would be, but again, it takes time, but should it be upheld, you will not be able to round up people and deport them because the ACLU's basic position, and man, let me tell you something, they were throwing a 60-yard pass, and they threw it to the right judge. They threw it to the right judge. They're basically saying you can't go into certain neighborhoods because of their ethnicity. You can't go into certain places because of their ethnicity and on because it's just palpable racial discrimination. You believe this, Mr. Producer? So you can't go into the neighborhoods where these people are because you're going into the neighborhoods where these people are. Now, let me be very clear about something. President Trump has made enormous progress all across the map, domestic and foreign. But these institutions are now being turned against us. And we're not going to have President Trump around forever, and we're not going to win elections forever. They're going to win elections, too. And when they win elections, they use the permanent part of the government, the courts and the administrative state, to enshrine their ideology, making it impossible to undo it, election or no election. It's important to know what we're dealing with here. This is the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party hates America. I wrote a whole book, and it explains it. But this ideology, the Marxist, Islamist ideology, is at home in the Democrat Party. That's where it is. And its anti-Americanism is at the core of their belief system. It's at the core of their belief system. You have this guy running in New York, Zoran Mamdani, who's a complete fraud. He filed on his college application, said he was both black and Asian American. He's neither black nor Asian American. He's Indian. He's a cheat, he's a liar, he's a fraud. But he's serious about his ideology. And his ideology is Stalinist Islamist. That's what it is. It's not democratic socialist. It is Stalinist Islamic. That's what it is. And it is this ideology, this fusion of ideologies that have taken over much of Europe. You'll see one town after another, one city after another in Britain and France, other parts of Europe, and now here in the United States. It's not an accident. Qatar has funded this. Hamas has funded this. Iran has funded this. Communist China has funded this. You'd be shocked at some of the conservative platforms in our media that have money from Qatar or Saudi Arabia or individuals who are sympathetic to them. If you hear people saying things that seem weird, as Rush would say, follow the money. Now, here we have the chairman of the Democrat National Committee, Ken Martin, on PBS today, as he's asked about Zoran Mamdani's refusal to condemn the globalization of the Intifada. The globalization of the Intifada, America, is worldwide terrorism targeting Jews and the West. That is the killing of Jews in the West internationally. That's what it is. And he won't condemn it. Listen to this. Hat tip free beacon, cut 6, go.
What about concerns from some of your Jewish colleagues in particular about him not outright condemning the phrase globalize the Intifada in a recent interview? Some of your Jewish colleagues have said that that could be very disturbing, potentially dangerous. Do you agree with that?
You know, there's no candidate in this party that I agree 100% of the time with, to be honest with you. There's things that I don't agree with Mamdani that he said. But at the end of the day, I always believe, as a Democratic Party chair in Minnesota for the last 14 years and now the chair of the DNC, that you win through addition. You win by bringing people into your coalition.
Okay, now listen to this guy. Just a political hack spewing stupidity. He won't condemn it. He will not condemn it. Go ahead.
conservative Democrats, we have centrist Democrats, we have
what does this have to do with the guy saying globalize the Intifada? Absolutely nothing. We have conservative Democrats, very few. We have progressives like me, he says, and now you have jihadis and Islamists who believe in slaughtering people in the West, especially Jews. That's your big umbrella. Your big umbrella includes individuals who spew terrorist slogans. Go ahead.
Like me, and we have this new brand of Democrat, which is the leftists. And we win by bringing people into that coalition. And at the end of the day, for me, that's the type of party we're going to lead. We are a big tent party. Yes, it leads to dissent.
All right, it's a big tent party, ladies and gentlemen. You heard him. So it's a big tent party that includes terrorists or individuals who spew terrorist lines. That's the big tent. Arzu Malik. Oh, yeah, the names are just great. Arzu Malik is a former intern for Zoran Mamdani. Arzu Malik, former intern for Zoran Mamdani, calls for a holy war through jihad. That is, the slaughter of people who don't agree with him. That's what a holy war is. Hat tip libs of TikTok. Cut 7, go.
And the true believer knows that none of this is in vain, that this is all jihad, that this is all ibadah, and that this is all counted for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the conversation of doxing, the conversation of getting arrested and suspended, I think it's time for Muslims to start to say, all right, so what? Do what you want. I'm gonna do what I gotta do, because it's about time to do that. And I know everybody has their own families and has an education and everything. Just a question. We don't want to get doxxed, and we don't want to get suspended, and we don't want to get arrested. How gangsta are you? That's just my question. How much are you willing to do it? And I know everyone has their own risk levels, but at the end of the day, that's a question to ask ourselves. How committed am I to this? To what extent of my personal material gains am I willing to sacrifice for this bigger noble cause? And the bigger noble cause, ladies and gentlemen, is the violent overthrow of the United States of America, the violent overthrow of the West, the violent overthrow of the city of New York. Listen to this woman. Listen to this punk. People come into this country, or they're born into this country, and look how they talk about the country. They're at war with the country. They think it's funny. They're aggressive about it. They're ideological about it. They hate us. They hate the country. This is what we're breeding in this country. Lack of assimilation, a lack of patriotism. Our schools have been taken over by these iron-fisted police state type teachers unions. As I've said to you many times before, the Democrat Party is like the Communist Party in these communist regimes. It's about the party. It's not about the country. Whatever it takes. A big tent. A big tent. Yeah, we'll let in the Marxists, the Islamists, the Jew haters, the American haters, the flag burners. Yeah, we'll let them in. Big tent. We're a big tent party. And they're really not, are they? Not if you're pro-life. Not if you're a moderate. No, you're really not part of the big tent, are you? Go ahead. When your heart is in the right place, if you get suspended, if you get doxxed, because it's bound to happen when you're doing a righteous cause and when you're doing something for the sake of Allah here in the West. You're doing something for the sake of Allah here in the West. And from her perspective, what is the sake of Allah here in the West? It is the utter and complete evisceration of the West. That's what it is. That's what it is. This is a young person. This guy running for mayor is 33 years old. This is his mindset. And when you read my book on power, when you read my book American Marxism, The Democrat Party Hates America, these last 3 books lay it out. But this book on power is very, very important. It's a book for our times. It really is, for the times that we're describing right now, that you're witnessing right now. We've got a real problem here, a real
spider web of problems here with the lower courts taken over by these leftists, American Marxists and Islamists. We have people here who are first generation. Biden picked these people not because they're first generation, but they're first generation radicals. That's why he picked them. And they're here, and they put them on the bench. They took them out of these radical, non-governmental organizations, radical ethnic front groups, out of the ACLU, out of our law schools and so forth. They picked the most radical people they could, and now they're judges. So they're advocates as judges. They're activists as judges. This is who they are. This is what they're doing. And they're still issuing these nationwide injunctions, or they're issuing injunctions in order to stop ICE from taking out illegal immigrants. Let me ask you something. How come in the 1950s, when Eisenhower did this over a 6-month period and deported over 1 million people, how come he wasn't violating the Constitution left and right? But today, if you try and do it, you're violating the Constitution left and right. Did the Constitution change? No, the judges have changed. The judges have changed. So even now when the Supreme Court rules, these lower courts give it the finger. And you have advocates for this destructive ideology, for the American Marxist Islamist ideology on the court. It's typically Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. But even Jackson is one of a kind. She's completely out of the closet. She is a judicial bomb thrower. And her opinions aren't even rational. They're not even based on precedent or law or the Constitution. They're like op-eds in the Washington Post or the New York Times.
Mark Levin.
The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
There's other rulings today, too, but it's incredible how these institutions have been completely corrupted. Completely corrupted. And the judges are just shockingly appalling. They truly are. By the way, we have 2 great shows on Life, Liberty, and Levin this weekend. I hope you'll set your DVR. I hope you'll watch them live. I hope you'll do both, just in case. Saturday, we have a full 1-hour interview with Benjamin Netanyahu. That's why I wasn't here on the radio. I had to go to Washington, D.C. It's a fascinating interview. It's not the typical type of interview. He was very relaxed. And you'll see a side of him you haven't seen. And he's smart as hell, and there are different things he was talking about. In any event, I think you're gonna find it very intriguing. And that's an exclusive interview with the Prime Minister for the full hour. And then on Sunday, we have our friend Stephen Miller and our friend Douglas Murray. 2 really fantastic minds there. And that's Sunday. So Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern on Life, Liberty, and Levin on Fox. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern on Life, Liberty, and Levin on Fox. If you're not sure you're going to be around, that's why you should always set your DVR. That's what we actually do that in our own house for shows that we want to watch too. You should check that out. I will also point out that On Power, my new book, will be released in less than 3 weeks now, on July 29th. If you want to get a good deal and get it quickly, you can order the book on Amazon.com. The book has received really very significant acclaim by people who've been reading it. It will be discussed at great length, not just by me, but by others. And it is a very readable book, but it is, in my view, a very consequential book on power. All these things we've been talking about are addressed in a very substantive way, philosophical, constitutional, historical way in the book. I break it down in a way where it flows, I hope, logically. It's a great book for summer reading. The chapters are Chapter 1 on power, a general discussion. Chapter 2 on negative power, and I explain what I mean by that. Chapter 3 on positive power. Chapter 4 on language. Chapter 5 on rights. Chapter 6 on liberty. And then the epilogue. And
It's all extremely relevant to what's taking place today. The funny thing is I have a section on the courts. I have a section on Marxism and Islamism. I have a section on you name it. And yet it's the most concise book I've ever written. It's also the best priced book I've ever written. And I think the timing is very, very important. It's also, the timing is propitious. That is, there's a level of luck. When you release a book, you write a book. If the timing is right or if the timing's not right, it just happens to be that the timing on this book is right. And on the back cover, there's an excerpt from On Power. Many have written about and debated the issue of power, including the ancients and modern philosophers, scholars, and statesmen alike. Why? Because power determines your social arrangements, quality of life, and more to the point of this book, whether you are free or enslaved or some degree of either. In short, it determines your personal fate, the fate of your community, and the fate of a nation. So much in life orbits around this word, this idea, belief, power. This book is intended to provoke a better comprehension of what is meant by power, the impact on the individual and mankind generally, and stimulate a broader examination and dialogue about its applications. In doing so, if it succeeds even modestly, perhaps it will prove an additional source for liberty and against tyranny. And that's why I wrote it the way I did. That's why it's concise. But I don't pull any punches in this book. I don't pull any punches. And we move smoothly through history and philosophy, ancient philosophy, modern philosophy. We move smoothly through our own history, worldwide history, faith and religion, and all these different things. Because this is your life. Your life is much more complicated than you might even think. You might say, I go to work, but your life as a human being, the things that influence you and the things that you influence, many of which you may not realize. You're a universe unto yourself, and you're a universe that projects onto others. And in effect, that's what I'm trying to describe in the book. And we talk about liberty here, and I have. You know, we changed to talk radio on this show. We changed it forever. When we get into philosophy, and we get into history, and we get into all these things. I could sit here and talk about Epstein till I'm blue in the face. I could sit here and talk about whatever it is. These things will come and go. They'll be resolved one way or another. But your liberty and your rights are up for grabs, America. There's a lot of shiny objects out there, and the goal is to ignore them. There are a lot of pseudo-events. There's a lot of propagandists and demagogues. There's a lot of stuff going on out there that will not affect your lives one iota. Contrarily, there's a lot of things going on each and every day that will affect your lives and don't get the focus that they need, either because we're busy or we're distracted. And it's my role, my job, in my view, is to keep us focused. I don't always succeed. I don't always succeed myself. That's the nature of imperfection, but that's okay. And one of the things I decided when I sat down to write this book, when I write a book, I've been thinking about something a long time. I don't just say, okay, now it's time to write a book. Let me talk about how to do. Let me talk about myself and my third volume of my memoir. No. I just came to realize that we talk about liberty and we talk about rights, and we must talk about liberty and we must talk about rights. But they don't matter if the earthly manifestation of liberty and rights don't exist, or they're not in the proper place, or they're not set up the way they need to be set up. In other words, we get these liberties and these rights from God, from a more powerful force than human beings. So we talk about unalienable rights or free will. But they don't mean anything if here on earth, they're not practiced or put in practice a certain way. And so I got to thinking, when we talk about the Constitution, when we talk about liberty, when we talk about rights and so forth, we do not spend enough time on power. Because power determines if you actually can exercise these God-given rights.
Now, people talk about in passing the type of governments that are set up, that sort of. I'm talking about that, but much more. Which is why I get into things like negative power, positive power, soft negative power, soft positive power, and so forth and so on. One day, probably when I'm long dead and gone, the book will be used in ways to describe what should have been or what could have been or what needs to be. Now, here I'm behind this microphone or in front of a TV camera or wherever I am. And so there's Mark Levin. People either love me or they don't. Many of you do, and I much appreciate that. But when the words are read and the concepts are made and the terms are expressed without really a reflection on me, that is, the messenger, I actually think they'll have more meaning. Look, to me that's kind of sad, but that's the nature of the beast. I'm not Alexis de Tocqueville, but for 50 years, Alexis de Tocqueville was ignored until after he died. He was about 50, and 40 or 50 years later, people began to pick up his 2 volumes, The Democracy in America, which were largely ignored, and they said, wait a minute, this is real stuff. This is important. This is important stuff. Frederick Bastiat, the same thing. He wrote the book, The Law. Short book, basically thoughts, little essays, and so forth and so on. But he was long gone until somebody said, whoa, this is important stuff. I suspect, could be way off, that's the sort of thing that'll happen with these books, particularly this one. But On Power is written really for now and in the future. It's written to have a lasting impact. If not today, tomorrow and the next day, if you get my point, Mr. Producer. And when I watch this guy in New York, when I watch what's going on our streets, I'll tell you what, after I interviewed Benjamin Netanyahu at the Blair House, there were a lot of people there that came to see him from Capitol Hill, from all over the government, from the private sector. They had an event, but I had to leave because I had to get my car out of the garage. The garage locked up at 9 p.m., so I left around 8:30 Eastern. And the Blair House it's protected like it's a military compound. It's so sad. When I worked in the Reagan administration, Lafayette Park and the Blair House, they were all accessible to the public. It's not the case anymore. It's like a fort. The world has changed since 9/11 in a big way. So you kind of have to walk around the block and then walk back to Pennsylvania Avenue. And I did. There were a lot of very loud individuals yelling some very horrendous things about Jews and Israel and so forth. And so I walked, and as I turned the street, I was noticed. And a guy in a bullhorn is yelling, "There's Mark Levin from Fox. He's a Mossad Jew who needs to go back to Israel." Now, that's the least of it, but they were yelling. So when people keep saying, I'm Mossad, I'm Israel, and things like that, when you know damn well I'm an American citizen, this has an effect on other people out in the streets. And it's very dangerous out there. It is very dangerous. And they were following me with their bullhorns. And it was loud. And I didn't know what the hell they were going to do. I wasn't going to back down, but I didn't turn around to meet the mob. I just walked. And then there were some Secret Service and police as I made a left towards the parking lot where my car is. And I said to a couple of the police officers, I said, "Hey, do you mind walking me to my car?" They saw what was going on, and they knew who I was, and they were more than happy to do it. It's very dangerous out there. Very. I am not kidding. Because you dare to express an opinion that is contrary to theirs. There are people in this country now who come into the country, who come from a background and a culture that is extremely violent, There are also people in this country who are being raised, born in our country, to be extremely violent. And yet it is they, we're told, who have a right to free speech and due process. As they chase people in the streets, as they chase people at colleges and universities, as they shut down free speech and academic freedom, as they try to shut down somebody like me. And I don't just get this from the hard left. I get this from the kooks on the other side, too. But I'm not going to stop. Either the good Lord takes me or one of them take me. But I'm not going to stop. I think this book on power is a very powerful book. I've written it for you, the people in this audience, your family, your friends, your acquaintances. This is who this book is for. You go to Amazon.com right now, it's $24. $24. People say, you're going to make a lot of money. Folks, I don't make a lot of money on books. If I want to make a lot of money, I wouldn't turn down all these speeches. I get offered $100,000, $120,000 to make a speech, Mr. Producer. Did I ever tell you that? I've never even told me. I've turned down every single one of them. The only speeches I'll do once, twice, 3 times a year are to conservative organizations. You know what I charge them, Mr. Producer? Nothing. I just need either more room to sit, sometimes first class because of my leg, and a hotel room. I charge them nothing. I used to take an honorarium and give it to the dog rescue missions. But now I figure they need the money, so I don't charge them a penny. I'm behind this microphone, and I do my Fox show, my Blaze show, because I'm blessed to have these platforms. That's why. Not because I need a damn thing. And this book is written, the amount of time that was spent on it, the research I did. I bring it to you. I offer it to you if you're interested in it at Amazon.com.
Mark Levin.
We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
What I've been trying to do here, certainly in the last 7 or 8 years, is try and persuade people who come to you on radio, on cable, on other TV platforms to use the proper language. I don't mean English, proper English. I mean the proper language in identifying what we're up against. Just a few years ago when I wrote American Marxism, which sold 1.4 million copies, which is unheard of, Liberty and Tyranny sold 1.5, that's because you are interested in these subjects, and on power, I hope, has a significant impact. They kept calling people progressives. And then they kept calling people socialists. Now, we need to understand, Marx himself said socialism is the last stage before communism. Socialism is the last stage before communism. And he hated the socialists because he believed that they watered down communism. Socialism is an economic ideology. Marxism is a life ideology. Marxism is an umbrella ideology that includes economic socialism. But it's beyond that. It's bigger than that. President Trump has been calling these people Marxists and communists since I wrote this book, American Marxism. More and more people on Fox are using the proper terminology. More and more people on radio are using the proper terminology. But most of them weren't. When I watch these seminars and sessions online, clips of them, of these professors and these activists, they are Karl Marx wannabes. They're also Hegelian and Rousseauian, but I don't need to get into that. So they are Karl Marx wannabes. So they take little pieces of what Marx wrote, and they regurgitate them, and they want you to think they're smart. There's nothing smart about it. Now let's go through a few of these things. Again, it's in the book on power. It's in American Marxism. It's in what I write. But let's go through a few of these. Individual liberty. You never hear these Marxists talk about individual liberty. You never hear Zoran Mamdani talk about individual liberty. Why? Because Marx denounced it, as did Hegel and Rousseau, but Marx denounced it. Individual liberty and free will, he said, I paraphrase for you, that means everybody lives on their own, they work on their own, and they are weak. They're weak because they're on their own. The class of individuals need to unite. They need to aggregate into a movement to become a powerful part of the body politic. If you're exercising your own free will, you're going your own way, you're motivated by your own desires and so forth, you're the enemy of the communal. You're the enemy. Because we cannot overcome what exists and change the status quo. Create this workers' paradise of equality. Eliminate the wealthy, eliminate the elites, eliminate the this and the that. And of course they would take control, but we can't do these things when people are off on their own, making money, pursuing what they're interested in. If you're a bricklayer, maybe we don't need a bricklayer in your community. Maybe we need a plumber. So you need to be a plumber, not a bricklayer. Let's say you're a plumber. We don't need a plumber, according to the powers that be. We need a truck driver. So you're going to be a truck driver. You're going to do what's best for the communal, not what you think is best for you. That's immoral. It's immoral for you to be so selfish that you care about only yourself and your family. Now, you will never hear this discussed on any news program that's discussing what's going on in New York with this clown that's running from. Never. So he rejects the whole idea of individuality. When they talk about equality, human beings have different interests, they have different physical powers, they have different mental powers, they have different backgrounds and experiences and different tastes and desires. That's not permitted. You've got to work in the quote-unquote best interests of the commune, of the communal. It's called communism for a reason. So your individual interests, the hell with them. They don't matter. And you're going to conform. You're going to conform to what's... This is why communism, a.k.a. Marxism, is so bloody. This is why they have death camps. This is why they round people up. This is why they try and destroy various ethnicities and minorities and so forth, because in order to rejigger society, what do you have to rejigger? What is society? You have to rejigger human beings. You have to remake them. You have to re-engineer them. That's you. And so when this punk in New York, he's 32, no more billionaires. Doesn't matter if they produce things that people want, they invest, they create capital. No more billionaires. Government-run grocery stores. They won't work. Doesn't matter. Government-run grocery stores. It's an ideology, a bad, flawed, deceitful ideology. They don't work from knowledge and experience. This guy has no knowledge and experience. In fact, the only knowledge and experience he has, if you want to call it that, is as a Marxist foot soldier. That's it. And so it's ideology, a damnable death cult ideology, a destructive ideology, an ideology that destroys economies, self-worth, neighborhoods. That drives them to the exclusion of real knowledge and experience. Because those who have a differing viewpoint, those who have real knowledge and experience must be destroyed, must be eliminated, or at least pushed to the side. Because that's dangerous. It's dangerous. So individual liberty is viewed as a destructive belief and force. You're selfish. You're just one person. You're dispensable. And you see that, right? Family. Why do you think there's this effort to destroy the nuclear family? Why do you think there's an effort to destroy the meaning of women, the meaning of men, in all aspects of our culture? And not just sports. That's the latest rendition of this stuff. Because the family is a social force within itself. There are bonds in a family that don't exist anywhere else. Well, for Marxists, the only social force that matters is this re-engineering of society. And if individuals acting on their own are the enemy of communism, families are the enemy of communism, because families reinforce belief systems and attitudes that are contrary to the commune. And so, yes, there should be no parental rights when it comes to schools. Yes, the children are the playthings of schools, government-run schools, and the unions, government-run unions. And we're not going to define women, as men as men, and so forth and so on. We have got to destroy the entire construct of the family, whether it means ignoring biology or whatever it is. This is why, under Mao, as an example, and all of them really, but under Mao, you had the children ratting out the parents who weren't sufficiently revolutionary, and their parents would be taken off to death camps. Mao talks about this in the Communist Manifesto. You dare to criticize me over my view of family? And by the way, just to show you, Mao loved his children. Mao would never have surrendered his children to a government. So when it comes to their own free will and their own families, they will fight to the death. But when it comes to yours, they will destroy it. This is a very evil ideology, extraordinarily evil. This is what Bernie Sanders stands for. This is what this moron and this Zoran Mamdani stands for. This is what Tlaib stands for, and Omar stands for, and AOC stands for. This is what they stand for. There's nobody around to confront these faculty members. There's nobody around to confront these politicians. I'm one guy. I don't know who they are and where they all are, but I use my microphone. I want to confront them. Because nobody knows how to debate them. Nobody. Handful of us. Why do you think Bernie Sanders won't come on this program? How many times have we asked this old man over and over, right, Rich? Why do you think Jamie Raskin won't come on this program? Why do you think Tlaib and AOC, they won't come on the program? Why do you think they won't come on the program? If they thought they could kick my ass in a debate, they'd come on the program. They can't, because I will expose them. I will push their ideology against the wall. They don't want to be exposed. They know they're not going to get it on any of the Sunday shows. They're not going to get it from the New York Times and the Washington Post. They're not going to get it from CBS, NBC, and ABC. They're not going to get it from the Epstein crowd. They're not going to get it from serious people like you and me. They're not going to get it. Because they don't want to be confronted. They don't want to be confronted. The war is more than a political war. It's more than an economic war. I told you, it's Marxism. It's not socialism per se. It's a war on the civil society, the entire society, the culture, the entire makeup of this country. That's what the war is. Before we had a declaration, before we had a constitution, we had a civil society. This is the core of everything. That's what they're focused on. Destroying the family, destroying the economic system, destroying individual liberty, destroying it. And what they're promoting is not new. It's not new. Genocide, the centralization of all power in the relative handful of a few, whether they call it the workers' paradise or they call it whatever they want, it's not new. It's deadly. It's anti-human. So when they talk about destroying the West, especially America, we have to militarize our ideology. When they're marching in the streets, burning the American flag, which is symbolic of what we stand for, which has been carried into wars. They're talking about burning the society and the culture to the ground. That's what they're talking about. That's what this guy's talking about. And they see the weakness in the West and in the United States. They see that the Democrat Party is there for the taking. They see the Schumers and the Hakeem Jeffries and their ilk. Weak, pathetic. They see Obama and Clinton. Weak, pathetic. They don't stand up to this. They don't fight this. They're devoured by it. Willingly so. The best they can do is say, I need to meet with the guy and have a conversation with the guy. Why? Because Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and their ilk, they've given up on the country. They've already embraced fundamental transformation of America. It's just a matter to what degree? To what degree? And when you've given up the basic principles of our country, when you've given up the belief systems and the value systems of our country, whether it's slowly or quickly, and they've given it up, in order to try and build a party, an all-powerful, one-party country, you have no mores. You have no standards. And so all they care about is if they can get elected. If this is something that will fly nationwide, or it may fly in New York, but it may take a little bit more time to fly in Peoria and other places. They're calculating. They've lost their soul.